Hey, Polly.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
I'm ready. Get your energy up.
All right.
We have a very energetic guest coming on today.
Oh, who is it?
We have Kalyana Champlain Spears of the Rhode Island Indian Council.
Oh, yes, she has good energy.
Yes, yes, she came. I met her when I was doing some research for a family that was in need.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed, and I told her I'm embarrassed to tell her that I did not even know that the Indian Council was here. She gave me a lot of information, a lot of resources to help out. And just from her energy on the phone, I just knew I had to get her on this podcast.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. So it took a little while to get her, but she's here.
Exciting.
So without further ado.
In this podcast, I want to dedicate it to Mrs. Mary Running Water Waldron, a major foundation for Rhode Island Indian Council. She passed away at the age of 93 at sunrise on April 26, 2024. She was a great woman. She did the longest walk during the 60s to Washington, D.C. on behalf of Native social and civil rights, and appointed to the first Rhode Island Commission on Indian Affairs. Her life's work is immeasurable. She is the granddaughter of Martha Ann Miller and John Lewis Elderkin. She had a peaceful demeanor with a kind smile, both gentle and bold in the way she lived. She spoke her mind and encouraged others to do the same. In that same sense, I want to give a shout out to my little cousin, Sierra Stanton, who died way too soon. But she lived this, and she believed that the youth had to speak up, and she lived this way. So in this sense, they both fulfilled the idea of the 7 generations. Aho.
Joining us today on the Totally Preventable podcast, we have Kalyana Champlain Spears, case manager with the Rhode Island Indian Council. Kalyana, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent. Asko Kwasin, how are you? How is everybody?
I am super excited to be on this podcast. I already want to dive in to find out what you just said.
Oh, yes. What I said was greetings. Hi.
Right. All right. Can you say that one more time so I can catch it again?
Asko Kwasin.
Oscar Way Quasin. I think I got it.
Are you going to remember that?
Not at all. I'll keep replaying the podcast.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being here and joining us on the podcast.
Yes, that's part of the Narragansett language.
Okay.
Part of our dialect.
Wow, that is awesome. So you started telling us a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. As you said, my name is Kalyana Champlain Spears. I am the daughter of Lorraine Champlain of the Narragansett tribe, who was an activist and a poet. Arthur Harge, who is African-American, and his mother is said to have Cherokee lineage, which we're tracing back now. He was a civil rights leader. He was a hero, helping to create and build many of the opportunities for people of color here in Rhode Island, and a supporter of the Narragansett Indian tribe. He was a foundation for talent development at URI, a program for underserved communities. And my grandmother, I'm the granddaughter of Elizabeth Champlain Mars, also of the Narragansett Indian tribe. She was a nurse, pianist, and often teaching lessons to the children of our tribe. So I'll run into some of my family and cousins and I'll be like, oh, I remember when Mama Bess, that's what we used to call her, used to teach us piano. So a little bit about me, because how we are, we always do our family first, right? We trace back lineage, and then someone's like, oh, I know who your mom was, right? So I graduated twice from URI, both with a bachelor's and master's degree in communication. How communication affects us as people and in society. I graduated from the honors program and summa cum laude. I taught there for some semesters, and while I was there, I served as a faculty admin for NASO, which was the Native American Student Organization, where I got to work alongside many young, talented, and brilliant Native American students, including my late cousin, who unfortunately passed, but definitely left memories and sunshine. And she was then NASO President Sierra Stanton, who shared the strength, wisdom, and culture of our people. She was so young, but so wise. So yes, I'm a proud woman with Narragansett lineage that I share with my husband, Seneca Spears that we have passed down to our two children, Oscar, meaning he who watches or vigilant, and Sokanan, meaning rain, which was my mother's nickname, and also the rain that comes from the sky that cleanses us. And we are proud to be a Narragansett family. Yeah, yep.
I love that. And I love how when introducing yourself, you include so much information about your family. That's so,
Yeah.
so interesting and cool. And I feel like I'm going to be invited over for dinner sometime.
Yes.
I'm going to know everybody at the table.
You know it. You know it. We'll have some good venison.
All right.
I'm not really a venison girl, but
On the side.
I love sides, so I can manage anything. So I asked Greg this question beforehand, and then we just decided I should ask you. I try to be mindful of my words. Words matter, and I noticed that you were from the Indian Council, and I
Yes.
always try to use Native American as a term.
Yes.
Now, so when should I use what term?
I would say let the person, tribe, or nation or organization lead you. So one thing that I definitely always encourage is don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask, because even I, as a Native American, you'll see Narragansett Indian, but you'll see like Shinnecock Nation, right? So it's like, oh, do I use Indian? Do I use tribe? Do I use nation? Do I use native? Do I use indigenous? So, like you can basically just ask whoever you're talking about or representing or talking to. It's just like with anything in society, right? Do you want to have something called a disability or an alternate ability, right? Do you want to be just autistic, or do you say on the spectrum, right? Is it substance disorder or misuse, or do you call it substance abuse, right? We've changed a lot of language, but some people prefer a lot of the old or some of the new. So I would say use your own discrepancy, but once again, don't be afraid to ask.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I am just going to be completely transparent. I did not know about the Rhode Island Indian Council for
Yes.
my entire timeline being in Rhode Island. As rich in Native American history that Rhode Island is, I mean, like every other name,
Right.
and I did not know. But then doing research and then coming across, I've been wowed by it. And then, starting communication with you, can you tell our listeners who are probably in the same boat that I am in, can you tell our listeners a little bit about the Rhode Island Indian Council and what it is that you do?
Yes. So let me see. So I'm gonna kind of go into this. I'm gonna back my way into this, okay? So our communities suffer from a lot of things, and I would like to get more into this later. The short end of it is that we've carried a lot of baggage that has left us it's affected us through our health, opportunities, and really a lot through our income. So the Rhode Island Indian Council seeks to address and alleviate some of this baggage to basically enhance people's quality of life. It was established in 1975, believe it or not. And it was led and supported by great Native Americans, and you can look them up. William Wilcox, also known as Big Toe, Gary Parker, Joanne Dunn, Lucille Dawson. I believe it's Joanne Dunn might be coming out with a book soon, so be on the lookout, talking about federal recognition. And now we are led by our current director, Daryl Waldron. And let me make it clear that all of these people and our current director, Daryl, the sole intent was and is to better the lives of Native Americans everywhere, no exclusions. So per our website, Rhode Island Indian Council, all spelled out, .org, our mission is as follows. The Rhode Island Indian Council is a regional urban Indian center and one of the largest Indian and Native American funded nonprofit agencies in the country. We promote the social, economic, and cultural well-being of all tribal entities. Our service area, believe it or not, encompasses 5 states across the East Coast. So that's Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, New Jersey, and New York. And New York right now has a lot of our health stuff. So that's where the health center is located for people in New York to get some assistance there. So for more than 45 years, our agency has paved the way for the Native American community to succeed and become economically independent. So what do we do here? We offer to any Native American belonging to a state or federally recognized tribe work readiness, career training, apprenticeships, education, and in New York, as I said, healthcare and job opportunities. So we are here to meet the needs of today's Native families and serve as a center for exchange and change. We hope to build independence through a strong economic foundation. We want to do this through utilizing our culture, our history, our traditions, and philosophies. So a couple of the things that we do here, is we'll have crafts, we'll have dancing, we really try and engage the communities, and we haven't done that for a little while, but we definitely are trying to get more into that. So here we are. If you know anyone who fits any of those descriptions, or, like I said, you do need to be part of a state or federally recognized tribe, but it doesn't matter if, you might not be getting serviced in one area. Tribally, we can try and service you here. No exceptions.
And do you have a building? Do you have a spot that people can come in?
Absolutely. We are located at 807 Broad Street. It is called the Algonquin House. So if you look in your GPS, it will come up as Algonquin House.
Now, you started off when giving your description, you mentioned how even in your introduction, family comes first. Can you talk about the family dynamics that you're coming across?
Absolutely. So okay, this is me getting into the, getting in through the back way right now. So in my younger years, I was really wild. I had a lot of stuff going on around me, and it actually went into, some of my adulthood, which I struggled with. But many around me when I was young, eventually myself fell into, substance use and other intergenerational traumas that are often found in all communities, including, but especially in the Native American community, things such as depression and PTSD, and intergenerational trauma, which here, I just want to make this clear, here I'm talking about it as far as Native Americans, but I would really encourage everyone to sort of get into their own intergenerational trauma. And it's a trauma that follows you through many generations and shows up in many different conditions. So one thing I'll notice about families in general is you could have a parent or a grandparent say, I don't know why he or she's acting this way. This hasn't ever been part of my life or your parents' life. And then you go back and it's like a grandfather or a great grandmother or an uncle on a certain side. And it's just come through. It's just followed through the generation. So for us, the different conditions were things like colonization, and the treatment and beliefs that we are less than, that we can still find in our society today. So for instance, the condition of many reservations, treated often less than animals. Comments like, okay, you'll hear it in the news. This gets me all the time. I've heard it in TV, I've heard it in the news. Would they go off the reservation? That is such a derogatory term because it was used by colonists back in the day, meaning that the Indian strayed, and in quotations, from where they were supposed to stay. right? We gave you a little piece to be on. You don't come off that. You hear me? Like a father to a child, right? You take this great nation of people and you infantilize them. You know what I mean? So, and then you have someone, they considered us wreaking havoc, causing a disruption, when it was really great people like Crazy Horse just trying to make a way for Natives to be treated fairly and equally. Today, Natives are considered dying, dead, not real, still unworthy or unimportant. The data is often skewed because these beliefs and these assumptions have seeped into culture. So for instance, my son, and I say this because so many people struggle with this, but my oldest son is on the spectrum of autism, right? He was diagnosed 3 years ago, and only because I saw the signs. It's very high in our communities, but goes unattended or unintentionally and intentionally ignored due to societal stigmas and lack of attention to our communities. Now, I say this, but I also want to extend this to communities that are underserved, that exist in poverty. While it might not be the same dynamic, it's still a dynamic that you've got parents trying to put food on their kids' table and sending their child to school. And sometimes, say, depending on the socioeconomic where the student is, these things go overlooked or ignored, or they're not properly educated as they would be in another community. So, I mean, these are things to really consider. For us, there were also many things that were taken away and not seen as important. Things like our creativity that we rely on so much, left out of spaces and ignored. So my cousin, Brooke Waldron, who's Wampanoag and Narragansett, her art literally focuses on bringing Native American stories and culture into her paintings. And I really love this quote she said, we're not just teepees and dream catchers. Native art is so much more, and we've got to reclaim our seat at the table. Our narratives, stories, and our artistic practice is almost exclusively told in the past tense and is really exhibited in an equitable way. All right, so what does this have to do with families? Well, this is just some of what we believe. Every family has their own tradition and their own heritage and their own culture and their own ways. So how does that make with the family that's separated, with the family that's non-traditional, with the family that maybe doesn't have a past? We have this idea of the nuclear family always penetrating our existence, right? It's got to be mom, dad, son, daughter, dog, grandma, grandpa, first cousin. I mean, it's crazy. So what happens when a family is disrupted by substance, by poverty, by health issues, by mental challenges, right? That they do not necessarily have the support to face, or they try and face it, and maybe the environment they were in isn't capable of giving them that support. Now they've got to find a new clan, a new tribe, right? And it's not going to look nuclear, but it can still be a family. We can still find a way out of the dark. We just have to change our mind about how the path looks. Does that make sense? Did I bring it back all right?
You did. You did.
All right, just checking.
I loved what you were saying about art. We have I live in Little Compton, and
Yes.
we have a historical society who is doing I'm not going to get the name of their project right, but it's a Native American garden. It has a better name than that, but they're looking for Native American artists to come and do sculptures. They want, or things that can be outside, because it's an outside exhibit. And
my cousin Brooke Waldron is up for that.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, and you can find her work online. Just punch in Brooke Waldron artist. And I know she has an article that I just took that from. I have to remember where I took it from, but she is very talented. I am hoping, she's Narragansett and Wampanoag, Seekonk Wampanoag, which is, a tribe here in Rhode Island. So I'm hoping, as a Rhode Island native, I'm thinking that she was already in there, but if she's still up, we are cheering her on. I would love for people to see her art. And as I said from her quote, she really, really, really believes in our culture, and really her art is just so reflective. It would really be good for others, especially in the urban setting, to see that.
I'm very excited about it. There's also some.
Yeah, back here on.
Okay, I'll call my peeps.
So,
But there's also going to be someone making, I'm probably not going to say it right, a washam, is that right? The canoe.
yes.
They're
So, and doing that.
I don't know who's doing that now. They're going to come and burn it out. And
Yes, we do canoes, and canoes, they have different names. Who's doing the canoe?
I don't know, but they're gonna then take it for a ride down the Sakonnet River too. So I'm very excited that we're as a community trying to learn more about the Sakonnets, the Narragansett, the
The sea.
Wampanoag, thank you.
Yeah, right now the Seekonk Wampanoag, who are up there for their state recognition. They're already recognized in Massachusetts. They have tremendous ties between there and Rhode Island. So that's really cool that that's coming up. Yes, we have a lot of people. We have Nipmunk. We have so many.
So do you know how many Native Americans are in Rhode Island?
So the numbers change, but I cannot tell you. If I were to tell you, I would be no better than anyone else looking up census data. And our census data has a tendency to be skewed for many reasons. Once again, that intergenerational trauma bleeding in, and a distrust in the census. So people not coming forth to do it, not really answering your door to a stranger. And then when it was done online, it was like, I'm not going along with that. It's just a way that, can be used to kind of keep us in a box and at bay. Many people claiming multicultures.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it falling into each category, they just there's a fear, they just pick a category instead of considering them all. And then of course, COVID, threw everyone for a curveball. So this happened during a time we were supposed to be getting a lot of data. So unfortunately, there's no real number that we can do on it. Yeah. I mean, not me. Now, someone else might have done the research. They might have it. Currently, we don't have it. I just know that those are the conditions that affected it or could have affected it.
I don't know if it's because I'm paying attention more or not, but I seem to hear about more groups or more events, more things involving Native Americans around here. I don't know if it's just me paying more attention or if they're being brought forward and
I think that once a seed is planted, so our subconscious is strong, right? They'll say, like, if I said to you today, man, there's a lot of blue Lexuses on the road, huh?
Oh yeah, I see what you're doing.
yeah.
Right? You'll be like, wow, how do people have a blue Lexus? So it's, and I hope that this podcast can kind of be a seed planter where it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Now is that native? Right. So it just, I think once it comes up, you sort of, and I think a lot of people, I'm hoping a lot of people are starting to have more respect for who we are. I mean, this land that we share, there was a people here that, I mean, I forgot, but it was, it was in the massacres. They would take us out in 45 minutes, men, women, children. I just decimated. And you would think for those of us that have that lineage, that have that descent, that are still here, that you would want to engage in a healing, you know, and that's a sharing of cultures and a sharing of minds and a sharing of ideas. You know, as I said, changing the way that we think of things, you know, introducing how we see life together, and actually reckoning those wrongs. Don't be afraid. Apology can open us up to great things. It doesn't mean you have to feel bad about yourself. It just means to give the other person recognition that you know it was wrong, and we're going to try and do what we can, and then show signs, step forth. How can we fix it, right? The same way in any family struggling from any of the things I mentioned, right? That apology piece, that forgiveness piece, those are huge pieces to recovery, you know?
How hard is it to trace your lineage? Like I'm thinking for those that may have lost, you know,
Yeah.
parents, may have lost, or some traumatic event where they don't have a lot of the resources. How hard is it to really to trace your lineage, to find out your belonging?
Absolutely. So we get this question a lot. We just had one today, so my answer is going to be a mix. And actually, Brooke Waldron's also a case manager in Connecticut, and she just had someone send this to her, and I just had someone come in this week. So it's pretty tricky. So one, okay, being totally separated from your community. That's sort of what we were dealing with, Gregory. Remember, with those kids?
Yep.
That came, and that was crazy, because that was, whoa. That was nuts. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that before I go on.
And that's their story. I can't share that.
Yeah, I hear you. But anyway, so they were separated, right? They were separated, and you were trying to connect us. That's how we met, to see if we can make a connection. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll make a connection through a tribe if you know they might be connected to that tribe. So every tribe has a genealogist. So if you know that you're like, oh, I might be Micmac, right? I might be, you know, I might be this, I might be that. So you can call sometimes the tribe and say, hey, do you have a person there that does lineage? I know this name. Is there any way you can help me trace it? Okay. Another way is the good old internet. So this person in particular that reached out to us had a name in her family that had floated around, but she didn't quite know the name, right? So there's, you know, you have to do your own family search. And here we don't do it. You have to do your own family search. I believe Brooke was saying that there's more than 574 tribes in the US. You know, so it's a lot. So there's most of which have websites. So you can go onto the website. You can find a medicine man, medicine woman, or genealogist, right? And you can go from that way. Sometimes you get it from names. So a name is dropped, and in that name, that could be a surname, could be a first name, could be a, you know, nickname. You know, you don't know. But you can try and look up that name and see what you can find. So it's, and don't sleep on places like the Rhode Island Historical Society. Love that place. I mean, I could stay in there all day, right? Where you can go back, and there's, you know, for us, there's lineage and paperwork and documents in there, some with names that you would have never even imagined connected or seen before. So that's some of the ways, your local library, but definitely those historical societies too, are a great way to search.
If this is a really silly question, we'll just cut it out, but well, so like my family, we did 23andMe.
Mm-hmm.
Do those kind of services, can they define tribes?
No.
No.
So Not as far as I know. Now, you can go back and correct me if I'm wrong. All they'll do is tell you that maybe you have some Asiatic in you, which could be native, right? So they kind of go that route.
Yeah.
I don't know much about them, but from what I do know, that's sort of what they do. They say, oh, your past was born in this area, right? You're from the Sahara, so this could mean this.
Yeah.
Is what they what they mostly go from. Now, if they've gotten more specific, that's great. I don't know. I mean, if they had, and it's 23andMe, right? It's not .gov.
Mhm.
So not that the government should always be trusted, but it's also, they look for something that says, oh, okay, somebody went through this and it was legit. You know what I mean? So those can be iffy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
They're cool. They're cool. Don't get me wrong, but they could be iffy.
Yes. Okay.
Now, in my naiveness and
We can cut your question out.
you can, you can. But this is something, again, I am learning more and more. And it's been, since our interaction, I've been, and maybe like Polly, I'm seeing it more, but our organization is in the process of becoming a brave space. And there was a term that has come across because we deal with a lot of youth and a lot of different communities, such as the LGBTQ plus community. And a term that's come up is a two-spirit. And
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I myself am not two spirit. I do have family and friends that that is how they describe themselves. So I heard two different ways of the term two-spirited. So the way first, the two-spirit is what we know of now, the LGBTQA plus community. And that is, they share that energy within themselves and their body. The other way I know of it is actually two-spirit, meaning medicine people that could see between two worlds. So it was the spiritual world and bring that medicine back to our world, which was the true spirit I knew of. And that some of us know of. So those are two terms. Once again, I could probably ask, I could probably run into another elder and they could tell me what their two spirit was. But I do think it's a beautiful term. And I do love the idea of the brave space. I think that's really awesome. That's really awesome. I might even use that with my kids.
All right.
Yeah. Let's enter the brave space, guys. Let's do it. I think that's cool.
It's an interesting training we're doing, and they were saying they also mentioned like apologizing, asking questions,
Mhm.
and
Right.
wrong, apologizing and moving on and doing better,
Yeah. I love that. I love that because it's how I raised my kids. I just didn't have a term for it yet. Now I got one.
All right. So just based off of your last answer, if you can give every organization one culturally competent thing that they can do to help the Native American population, or to work with, not even to help, but to work with the Native American population, what piece of advice would you give?
I would say seek out the tribe in your area and connect with them, their people, their council. Ask if you could be invited to an event, and learn all you can about them through each one, seeking out who's in their vicinity. That's how connections are made. That's when you get in and we start to see where we can build further.
Right.
Do you have family-oriented events?
I mean, we do now. We're some cookout people.
All right. We'll be waiting for our
I mean,
invitation.
but like this weekend, we went out and we went out to the pond, which is, we got a couple ponds where we live that mostly tribal members go to. We keep it pretty much like, res oriented or people there. My kids were out there swimming their little hinds off, and people just bring stuff to eat. It's really cool. You just go, but we're always in nature. We're always out there visiting the trees and the lakes and the grass, and my sons are constantly bringing me flowers. It's the cutest thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's our stuff. That's our stuff.
I would think it would be important to do things with families and other families to keep traditions going and
Yeah.
keep stories alive and all that.
Yeah, that's why we sort of have those unspoken meeting spots, that we can connect with each other. We have things on our reservation that we have events at, cultural events where you can learn things that the Narragansetts are doing right now for tribal members to come, like moccasins and finger weaving and things that we might have lost that now we can partake in and relearn to share with the next generation. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because it doesn't take much to lose tradition, I think. I know I have a Portuguese background, and my aunt who I lived with was I don't know, she's kind of embarrassed at times by it. And so a lot of the culture didn't get passed down to me. And when she got older, she was like, "Oh, I wish I taught you these things when you were younger." And that's only, she was my great aunt, so that's only 2 generations, and things are already lost. You don't want to lose all that great stuff.
And that goes back to that intergenerational trauma, right?
Mhm.
So somewhere along the line, right, immigrants, right, people who come are seen as less than, right? You had the Irish, the Italian, just Jewish people just seen as less than, and some of that embarrassment you hold. Like, shame is a very powerful emotion. People do not realize how powerful it was. I'm a girl who's all about learning therapeutic and being therapeutic practices. I always tell people therapy is nothing to be ashamed of. It's great. But the first thing, one of the things that I learned was, where does the shame show up in your body? That feeling, like for me, it was behind my eyes. I could tell it was coming. And that shame. So imagine if she had that feeling in her body, and on top of it, that embarrassment carried over from generation after generation. And now she's afraid to even practice what she knows. And then she gets older, and it's a whole new trauma because she's realizing she wished she could have kept it for you. Right? So that's horrible in some way and tragic. But in other ways, it's like, you know what? Let's go on this journey together. Let's reclaim it. Let's reclaim it. Let's get it back. Let's find a way. Let's, whether it's through learning your language, whether it's through activities, dress, all that stuff. Music is huge, right? All that stuff. It can definitely be something that can make a brighter day.
For our listeners who are as intrigued as I am and thriving off of the energy that you're giving through this podcast, what's the best way to get in contact with the council?
Oh, best way. Well, like I said, we're at 807 Broad Street, Providence, Rhode Island. You can also call us at 401-781-1098. If you're ever looking for me directly, I'm extension 303. You can also email us at info@RhodeIslandIndianCouncil.org. So all one word, and that's info@RhodeIslandIndianCouncil.org.
All right.
I'm so excited to meet you. After that last meeting, I was like, Greg, who is that lady? I love her energy. Who is that?
We got to do this. Oh my gosh. And please, like, your organization is so amazing. The amount of people that were there, I really encourage people to get to know you. And the follow-up was awesome. The list of people that I couldn't reach there that was given to me. Oh, it was so great. It was so great, just awesome. So, I know we got to close out. And this has been an awesome podcast, but I would just like to close with one thing. that while this podcast did talk a lot about Native people, I feel that it also talks about, self, society, and community, whether it's reclaiming your own mind and spirit, as to how you see things or experience life, or how you demand that you be heard and not, not ignored, to be considered, or how you experience your tribe. As we move into the future, I think we need to see the truths, examine the discourse, and look at how we can make things totally preventable.
Mic drop.
Yes,
Kaboom.
love it.
Kalyana, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
Push, Aquine, thank you, and peace. Yes, this was amazing.
Thank you so much.
You have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.